This conference will now be recorded.
Sorry. Any other questions on the financials anyone would like to ask or point out? Okay, vacant. Have a motion there, new and unfinished business. 24 county budget request.
Yes, started working on the budget request for the county.
You made that presentation already at governance, did you? The governance committee?
Yes, I did. While they gave us a range of what to apply for, which is very favorable, they based it, I haven't pointed this out to anybody yet, except for Megan. They based it on our allocation that we got this year. They did not base it on the 75,000, so it's a lot higher. And I made a decision to actually go with what they told us to apply for, as opposed to telling them they made a mistake.
Well, maybe they see value in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And give us a little more budget to work with. We earned it. You did, because you did a good job, Jody. You earned the raise. Don't spend it all in the same place.
But in our budget that I'm working on right now, and Megan will be working on for the Harris reports, we're probably going to drop it down to like 90,000.
Okay, yeah, in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Realistic. I didn't quite understand their confidence level in that.
yeah,
How they come up with that.
So where are we at, how will be our requests?
they give us a range from
high end?
190 to 400, over 400,000. I think I'm going to request roughly 300,000.
It was 440, you could ask for 4.
Tell what to.
I got even in the sales business. Negotiation.
Well, I'm
I'm gonna
sure.
fly under the radar, so you're like, whoa, what?
Sure, a couple of people. How did this number comes so high?
Well,
They can
well,
do
you
better.
have to go 400. Well, let me say, yeah, they have to apologize for putting the wrong number down.
Maybe not. I mean,
They
again,
should be spending you, they should be investing $500,000 a year in IDA for us to be effective. I've been saying that for the last 30 years, so don't offer it to me. I'll tell you.
You know, request 400,
all right.
which could be.
And you can be shocked and say, well, that's what I got this note. You know, I thought that's what you wanted me to do. That's all. You got your own next line made. And if they give it to you, you say, oh, thank you very much. And then you gotta really get going.
Definitely thank you very much. So we're working on that.
Okay. Paris report, annual budget?
That's it. Harris reports.
Yeah, it's on, you've got this on. the
Yeah, we
agenda.
have to complete that by October 1st. So we have a month to retire.
Any concerns with being on time with that?
No.
Okay. Okay, any other business? Any motion to adjourn? Can't do that. We don't have a quorum.
I'm with you though. Well, we were discussing that earlier. We may have a forum because we're bidding.
That's what I asked last time. Yeah, that's what I asked. So we still don't have four though.
You don't technically have to. But and technically it's only, there's not members of the audit and finance because it's Jack, Craig, Patricia, and Andrew.
So they have to make up the quorum. Okay,
No motion.
so we'll just make a note that we're gonna have to do the payment of the bills. We'll have the motion in the,
Well, so you guys had made a motion a long time ago that if they're normal operating expenses,
Right,
we can go ahead and pay them.
right.
It's something out of the ordinary that we need you guys to.
Let me say the
But do we
operation.
still have to have the motion followed up?
So yeah,
In the
usually
board.
in the past, I put them on the board meeting and I just notated that we paid them.
We paid them already, yeah. So just a
So
note
I'll
that we'll
do
have
that.
to, and we'll also do approval of the meeting minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, done.
Okay, projects committee, we'll call it to order. That's my comments. I could approve, a motion to approve the July 13 meeting. Any questions,
So moved.
comments? Second. Okay. Do I go get done?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the only project committee here.
I know, I'm not on the committee anymore. I don't know if that happened.
Well, you said that.
I know. Mouth.
Which way you went?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did that. Did that pivot.
It's not even there, and next thing you forgot paper.
Hey, Bob,
See, maybe you could outrun it, couldn't we?
And I already fixed it. Well, sorry for the late delivery on this whole thing, and Mr. Hickey's here, and this is really kind of a simple project. Guys own a big piece of land, 2.5 miles south of Cooper Shop Route 28. Still, he's owned it for 4 decades, 4 decades. And we've been looking at a project that was basically an entertainment center for families based on water and based on baseball. We've eliminated the water and came back with a plan to put in what's called a family entertainment center. They're gonna buy a 42,000 square foot building and put it on the same footprint where originally the town of Hartwick had approved a water park years ago.
Right.
And the difference is it's 10 times more expensive to build a water park than it is to build an entertainment center. And the revenues appear to be virtually identical. Produces about 120 jobs that range in salary from $17 an hour at the bottom to $115, $125. The payroll the first year will be about 2.7 million. It'll grow to around 3 million, 3.4 million as it increases in size. Mr. Hickey has an approval for 3 fields. They're working on getting the FEC, the Family Entertainment Center, the 42,000 square foot building approved by the town. And if it gets approved in September, then the company that makes the building, the steel building, they can actually erect this building between November and June 1st of next year. So it'll move very rapidly once it goes to the approval process. The challenge is about $4 million worth of chattel, which is people who could be subject to sales tax, which you guys could relieve us of if we could figure out a way to work through the IDA. We looked at a pilot. The current taxes are around $40,000. It's going to grow pretty significantly. We checked with the other baseball camps are being taxed, and we're only going to have 3 fields. That's all we have approved at the town at this time. 3 fields. Yes, sir. No, there's 3 fields, and our growth is limited by the absence of a turning lane in New York State 28, which will take about 1.5 years to get through the process. So we would open next June 1st with 3 baseball fields and the FEC all built, ready to go, and be limited to only 14 teams per week at the camp. The minute the field goes in, that limitation is eliminated. The minute the lane goes in, that limitation could be eliminated. Thankfully, the way the land sits and the road sits, we don't need the cooperation of people across the way. All the construction for the road can happen on Mr. Hickey's property. So that kind of concern of getting access and control is somewhat limited. So we're thinking that probably a successful strategy for the Route 28 expansion wouldn't be until the fall. It may not even be until 2025. They will not do any road work on 28 during the season. Okay, it just doesn't make any sense. But that really just limits the upside potential. It doesn't limit the things we have to get done. So although the application was on the old version of the form, and the new version of the form was basically the same thing as the old version with the existence that certain information on payroll used to be attached as a separate attachment, now looks to be embedded in the body of the application itself. So we can make that conversion for you to put it on the right paperwork. I have the payroll schedules with the different jobs. It goes from around 30 jobs today to about 123 jobs when the 3 fields are operating. And if more fields can be built, there's enough physical space And we believe in the water management technology, not to put anything into the river. This is a limitation. You can't put nothing in the river. Nothing. But we believe we have the technology located that would allow us to go to 7 fields, maybe 8, maybe 9 fields. At which point each field is worth about $500,000 additional revenue. Because that we can play more teams. So this application process is really to get started so we can complete the discussion and get an understanding of, one, if it's feasible for us to get through the pilot and the relief program for sales tax, possibly for property taxes, between now and November 1st. That really is the window. We can acquire the building. They come as a separate kit. This is an acre of building that's a free span, 120 feet by 350 feet, 350-foot building. It's a huge building. It's a standard building that's built by this company all the time. And basically you get on a list of people that want one, you give them a small deposit, and then you commit to it later when they have the building available. So we haven't gone beyond cleaning up our site. He's painted some of the buildings. He's put in some minor things that were part of the original business plan that he had when we ran the fund center. So nothing has effectively begun except for planning and discussion. I think this week we'll be finally able to apply to the banks. Not this week, early next week. The only hold up there has been the taxes, federal tax returns and financial statements for Mr. Hickey's partner, a fellow named Corey Hogan, who is out of the Buffalo area, Amherst, Buffalo area. We spent, I only joined Bob in December, but we spent the spring looking for investors. And Mr. Hogan was the first one to say, I'll get involved, but you guys are spending too much money on a water park and other stuff. Let's look at other alternatives. And I think you guys came to agreement that it made some sense to go this direction. Puts a lot less demand on the environment and appears to generate the anchoring activity of about 210 days of strong activity at FEC. They can run year round, but it would require the cooperation and collaboration of other people in the market to attract more business in the off months. I don't think you're going to find, you may be able to attract from 60, 70 miles away the birthday parties and stuff like that people have in these centers, but you certainly can't make a living on it unless you have 400 kids on the property playing baseball. And unlike the other parks, you wouldn't be sad if it rained because they would just come inside and spend money in the entertainment center. The fields that are proposed are all artificial turf. Mr. Hickey has the equipment and the ability to prepare the site surface within 10 inches, 6 inches of what they have to be at. And then somebody like Clark or another company will come in and install the artificial turf, which allows you to recover from bad weather in 20 minutes as opposed to 2 hours. It also allows you to avoid a lot of other things you don't need. That being so close to the river, you want to control how much chemical stuff and things like that are going to be nearby. So I think we have a good plan. It's Mr. Hickey's putting in his property. Right now we're approaching the banks with a request for $14 million in private financing. We're not asking for the IDA to do a bond issue. We're trying to find a way to limit the sales tax and try to limit the tax ramifications of the project. Because the first 5 or 6 years until you develop a following, the project doesn't make much money. The cash flow really can't. So it's an ideal situation for your 10-year. Are you still on a 10-year, 10% a year, or do a different one now? The pilot.
This probably would be treated as a 10-year pilot.
Yeah.
Because it would be more real estate.
Yeah, that's what we did too. We calculated that as well. So you're on the same page with the 10-year, and the improvements in that FEC alone are between 4 and 6 million. The fields cost a lot more than they're actually assessed for. Fields run anywhere from $800,000 to $1.5 million a pop.
That's what I was gonna ask you, that the $500,000 assessment is low compared to that.
The assessment is lower, but
Right.
what do you have when you're done? Let's be honest with you. You got a field with fancy drainage, and a big carpet. So
All lighted, I assume.
yeah, and with LED lighting and, in our proposal, we have 14 million from the banks, about 12.5 million coming from the partnership. And of that 6 million in cash, that's gonna go in now. Mr. Hickey's already got $500,000 invested in cash in the last 25 months to get to this point. Not anticipating a lot of trouble with that. We've got primary and tertiary sources of income to get the banks to play ball. It's gonna, we think we got a good map on that. But in the absence of some relief on the pilot and the sales tax, when you spend $4 million on stuff that's chattel, it's $320,000 that you could possibly avoid if you could work it out. My original thought was we would try to do this as an agent of the organization and not transfer the property to the last moment. I'm not certain what the rules are for, we're not using public financing. We may apply for some grants. I've looked at the grants that the CFA has us available for. It's $500,000 of stuff we might be able to pull down. That would be nice to get, but it's not going to stop the project. What kind of things are they? Carbon control. Right? We're not doing anything with water. That's a problem. This doesn't generate a huge amount of water. All the water that comes out is clear. So we're not going to have trouble with that, but there might be that. So when you look at the application, it has the owners putting in 12.5, 13.2, the bank's putting in 14 over time, and then maybe there'll be $500,000 worth of grants. We don't need a bond issue to make this thing go. We don't think it. Missing.
So I think we'll maybe get the information, just curious from a job scheduling standpoint, are you talking full-time year-round jobs?
There'll be some full-time year-round jobs, but the payroll obviously is going to be the heaviest in the middle months between June and there. But in the wintertime, the payroll does fall to 25,000 a month. If you get 210 days from a water park, and you might get, we're going to stretch the season a little bit, you're going to lose most of December and January. It's not going to be here, but there'll be other employment. Payroll isn't small, it grows to 142 people. Of that number, when we look at the payroll schedule, how we did it was how many hours are going to be open and how many people we need when we're open, kind of thing. But there'd probably be 16 to 18 that are very good, high-paying, full-time year jobs. And then right now, how many folks are 4 or full-time time? Yeah. And then you're stretching it. You're going to get 7 or 8 months. But I think the FEC, if you're lucky, you're going to have to pay to heat it no matter what, right? So costs are being open a little bit. How many folks do you need in this? It's a huge building. If there are 7 areas, you're going to need 7 people to watch over one person for each area, just to manage it. But those would be, that's going to be some cool. But it's all about the payroll number. Total revenue side of the thing. Goes well, so 6 million, 6.5 million, it can go higher. So we have those forecasts coming through. The FEC alone is 6.5. It's really strong in the baseball park. With 3 fields, is $2.5 million worth of revenues. So to put it together, it's $8.5 million. Use the numbers they normally use. It comes to be how much is that worth in the economy? It only goes through the economy a couple times, so maybe it's worth $20 million additional growth going forward.
Building is open to people other than the ones that are playing in your fields.
I believe if you have a credit card, you're allowed to go in.
Well,
Yeah, it's a big
It's a big
deal.
deal because of the amount of other people that are.
Well, yeah, your entertainment center, whatever, your captive audience is next door.
Well, during those 100 days, it's gonna be tough to find space in there,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
but I would hazard in September,
yes, you shoot cannon through it, not in.
oh, hopefully not true,
Well,
but you should
Somebody,
and try to avoid a couple people.
but in the sun, if you open it, you're full the first week it's open because you have so many people next door with time between games and families to do. I mean, I can't see you don't have to advertise and draw a crowd in the summer months.
But you have to market like crazy.
Yeah.
For the show.
Correct. Extended a month or a month.
You'd open it up, if you'd also be, I would think, sometimes strategic in your discussion with that, because if Cooperstown is going out, it's going to attract more visitors, being open makes sense.
Mhm.
Because the marginal cost of reopening is pretty big.
And my goal is to be open for baseball programming in spring and fall. So
Mhm.
we'll be doing weekend tournament
So,
for both girls and boys. Specific something is our goal. More.
what's the height of the inside of the building?
They said it's gonna have a mezzanine inside, so let's take 28.
Yes, it's 22, 28. It's a huge open span. Well, I got 3 pitch, so. But it's 22 on the edges, I believe is mine. 18 is the normal warehousing, so we're a little higher than that, but it gives us space to have a second 9-foot floor around the edges.
So the question is probably back to you, Jody, in terms of the timing and how quickly we have to get board approval, obviously, submit the pilot request.
Yeah, I got the draft application late yesterday, and I had a night meeting last night, so I really didn't go through it in any detail. I did notice that they're using an old application, so I sent them our current application because there's certain questions that the state controller requires, that aren't in this application, one of them being, will this project move ahead without IDA assistance? And if you say no, or yes, the state controller will question whether, why are we doing this project? I did have a couple of real quick questions. On page 5 of your application, you say the project cost is $12 million.
Yeah, it grew to 14. It's a couple little things to fix on it. Depends on how, the one big number I don't know yet. We don't have the engineering for the underground.
Okay, because on page 17, it said the total project cost is $25 million, so there's
Yeah.
a big discrepancy there.
Well, the big discrepancy there is when you look at what we're building, we need cash of around 12 to 14 million dollars to build it. We should be able to generate 2 million if things go right. But you have to add in the other value that's created. Mr. Hickey's putting in his $6 million property, which isn't part of that first page of what your costs are, because he's injecting it. We can put that as, he's already owns the property. So that's 6 million of the difference of the beginning. We can put that in, and then later on it says, what's your total project cost? You've got 6 billion for the property going in. Then you have the building with about $6 million for the FEC. Then you have the baseball fields. The total project, if you went to what could be built there, is going to be approaching the 25 million. But we only have approval for those 3 fields, which is about $5 to $8 million. So it's kind of flexible right now where you're going to go. When you look at this project, if you ask me to go out 5 years in forecast, if things go well and you're fully subscribed, every other camp has added all the fields that can cash flow every year. So there's going to be some variation on that concept, that if you have the demand, if you're full, you add the field that lets you add more teams, all the fields pay for themselves over the 5-year period that you're asking me to do a forecast on, what's your total project? Well, we add those extra fields and it grows to about $25 million. And it's hard to follow. We can say at the beginning that's going to be 25, but we only have approval for 3. But you're asking me for the 5-year. I can cut those other things out and get rid of it all. But that's really what the difference
You're really
is.
looking for the cost to get open and running. Not when it's all done. I mean, 5 years from now.
Right.
So we can limit it to the one set.
Building 3 fields.
And
Yeah.
these 2 pages should be consistent.
Right. Well, yeah.
And then they do indicate that in the first year of operation, they'll have 19 full-time employees. but I'll go through this.
Yeah, we have a pretty elaborate payroll schedule. Sure, stuff out, we think we're gonna be.
Okay, my last question is, I know when you started this a couple of years ago, I had to approach the assessor to get an idea of what they were gonna reassess the property for. And obviously, your plans have changed. Have you approached the assessor to get a realistic number? for-
Yeah, talking about it was, that's where I got those numbers from. I talked to the assessor for town of Hartford. He gave me the impression that the numbers I put for that pilot would be what he would be trying to assess. And that's where I had that conversation with him. So, yes, we talked to him about it. That's what we think. He said, how you gonna do it? I'll look at the two in town, see what they're assessed for. And I said, well, you got this FEC, we don't know how you're gonna assess that. He goes, well, your cost on that, that's easy to understand, it's square footage, I can do that. So that's where I got the numbers from the pilot.
Okay, did he put it in an email to you?
No, he just talked on the phone. Yeah, I get, just send him a note.
That would be helpful, because I would rather see what he's actually gonna, in writing, what he's gonna assess it for, so that we can do our calculations based on that.
Okay. So you do
I have the old one I sent to Bob about a year and a half ago. I can send that to you.
Yes,
That would help him.
Yeah.
but that would not the FEC, and that was just the,
Right, that will change the numbers, I'm sure.
right, okay.
Yeah. He hasn't done it. He hasn't. I spoke to him on the phone maybe 3 times about 2 months ago. Get what he's gonna do, so we can get him to do a little more.
See, when we do our analysis of it, we'll give you what we think the benefits would be for you.
Right.
And the problem is always not so much that it's getting a firm number from the assessor as to what he's going to raise it to if you build it. And oftentimes we can't get that information, and I give you a wrong number, and then you're going to come back and say, well, you told me it was going to be this much, and I'm only going to get this much. So
No trouble. No trouble.
so that would be helpful.
Now that he knows it's more real, he might give us more of his attention. Yeah. He was trying to raise, so.
But once we get the revised application, I'll give you my comments. I mean, we can start the process now, and receive the application. Very oftentimes we get applications in that have discrepancies in that we have to put application on.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I want to get the thing started. My other questions are there steps? Is the sales tax tethered to transferring the property? I'm trying to make sure I understand the act of an agent before the property is transferred or later. Is there a difference in how the benefits are delivered if you act as an agent now and transfer the property later? And since what we're looking at here is the conversation, we're going to have to transfer the property prior to the mortgage tax being assessed, because the mortgage tax is 3/4 of a point, 14 million, it's $100,000. So,
I'll have to confer with our attorney on that.
because I believe we can act as an agent for the IDA and transfer it later when the property actually gets moved over. That's not really the timing of that. When is that? That was one of the other owners. He wanted some time to, if maybe, well, they want is the sales tax benefit. I'm not sure if the transfer of the property is the trigger. It's for the trigger for the pilot. I understand that. But for the sales tax, I wasn't sure of that, whether you could do that in advance.
I don't think so, but again, I want to check.
Yeah.
Nadine, this case.
And other than the $200, what other fees are incurred more immediately?
That's it right now.
That's it.
I read that now, and give it to you.
If you would like, yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, sure. Just make it to the Otsego now.
No, make it to county. of
IDA.
Otsego.
You can write COIDA if you want to make it easy.
Flowers.
And that was,
We were talking about the engineering, we were talking about all the underground electric.
All the stuff, even for the building, everything goes in the foundation. And then basically does run feathers up to
Do you do test borings or do you need to do test?
We still need to do test. 200?
Yeah, we really are ahead of you guys. We really are, other than finding the place to get the building, which was,
Where is that?
I don't know the name of the company,
I think it's up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the name either.
Interesting.
but they just make these steel buildings, they make them all, then they put them up. As long as we get the foundation to their specs, but the engineers, Bob's partner, Corey Hogan, they've hired a couple of engineers to be full-time on staff to get the project moving forward. Because the engineers was less expensive to hire than pay for service.
Does not seem good brand, but okay.
Well, no, just,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a big project. Going to continue to grow it. You know, the town of Harwich's been very good about it with 3 fields, and they were very receptive to the replacing the part with the FEC. Which honestly, I didn't think they were going to be so amenable to all that. They were really good about it, which moved this faster than I thought. Although I've been talking to Jody about this for 15 months, he said get the app in and get started. Don't wait till the last minute. Here he goes, he gets his app last night.
He's used to that too.
Yeah, but that was pretty straightforward deal. We don't have an NDA with the idea.
I'm sure to say fair, right?
Right, we're good.
Recording.
No, just people know we're trying to get done, it becomes public meeting.
Yeah.
But public meeting will have better drawings.
Yeah.
So that doesn't look like it'd be foolish. So I appreciate you guys seeing us.
All right, yeah, thanks for coming.
I've got one question. So the turf you're planning on using is the turf they put in fields in Binghamton where it lets you play earlier in the season, like March?
Yes. I like the synthetic turf for several reasons. Maintenance, you don't mow it, you don't need to chalk it, line it. 20-minute downpour, you're on in 10 to 15 minutes back playing. And it's just, it looks brand new the first day you put it in, and 5 years from now, it's brand new. But the biggest reason why I wanted synthetic turf fields is I'm really trying hard for girls programming. And if you had a regular field with a clay mound, well, you can't take that mound out. So synthetic turf, we're going to have what's called, the company's called the perfect mound. So that'll be in there for the 12U and 13U boys. But then we'll be able to take that mound out and program that girls softball. So my goal is to really give girls a chance to come and have tournament play, whether it be on weekends. A lot of girls don't do week-long tournament play. So we may take our shoulder seasons and really try to push for girls and become a regional championship location for some sanctioned bodies.
Yeah, I believe the Binghamton fields are being used. The intention is for softball.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be the common trend.
Yeah, well, and it works well.
Yeah.
That was the big caveat why I wanted synthetic.
So your season really is already longer.
Yes. Yes, so we'll definitely have shoulder seasons in spring and fall. And that's been my intent. It's just, I'll be honest, I've been here 30 years and it's just our town, just the sidewalks roll up. And for me to even try to bring in an indoor FEC and try to bring in some year-round shoulder season activity it's been my goal of my dad and I for years, because you can't make a living on 100 days.
Mhm.
And you can, but then it's a long 9 months until you back in to try to make your money again to last another 9 months. So if I can help out our community and everybody, that's my biggest intent.
And what's going to be happening in the entertainment center, or is that still developing?
Yeah, that would want.
Yeah, it's going to be an indoor laser tag, bumper cars, the David Buster's like of an arcade,
Okay.
a bar, a big eatery inside, probably blacklight, a mini golf, some virtual reality, indoor baseball simulation. And in the mezzanine, probably some party areas so we can do some groups and stuff. But that's about I'm in the entertainment business for years, so I think it'll go well and hopefully have a draw to the area on the off season.
I was meeting with a guy that owns one down in Maryland. It's 50 cents a minute per kid. That's what the revenues are. And then I watch these kids do a virtual reality and they're Jedi Knights fighting, and it's just kind of fun to watch with the kids. They spend $100 in 2 hours. The parents just do it. It's a high intense thing. They do have the parties and stuff, I'm sure you think about. But I was amazed that it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour visit. They're there the whole time.
See, for years, range is just always killed us with my amusement center. My dad used to call it acid rain because when it rained, everybody would leave. You know, it just killed business. And dad says, we just need a roof over everything so we can keep going. So this is our opportunity to try. So I'm looking forward to it.
There's a huge need in March and April for softball facilities.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, you were school board.
Yeah.
And for kids can't get outside. You know, within a 60 or maybe even an 80 or 90 mile range.
Right.
Teams would kill to get out of
Safe field.
a field. That's not mud or, yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jody's good seeing you again.
Okay. Carol, you know a little bit about it. So.
A little bit.
Oh, yeah. Sunny one day and
Yeah.
it snows the next.
Spring sport, what did you meant around here?
I played in some snowstorm before.
Your college field.
It was not turf, no.
Okay, so are we next executive session? Is that what we're doing now?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
Second, no need to make the motion.
Yeah,
I discussed the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation.
You got it.
This
Yeah.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, any quick updates on our project trackers?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It wasn't a lot going. I didn't do one for Richfield Springs because we're having a meeting on Tuesday and so we'll decide what goes into the project tracker. Or what we have.
Doug's proposal, Doug and Bob. What are your thoughts on that? Provided that they clean up the application.
They have a decent business plan. Originally, they wanted me to sign a confidentiality agreement to see it, and I said, no, I don't do that. So they actually emailed it to me. It's a good business plan. I'm just not sure if their banks are gonna finance it. Just.
Well,
I think in the end, that's not really our worry,
correct.
right? Like if they don't, they don't. I mean, I think ultimately that's right between them and the bank.
I
I think
think,
we do our part, we do
Doug
what
knows
we,
banking.
yeah, we do what we do in terms of getting approval. And
Well, once again, is the project qualified, makes sense
Right.
for a pilot is really what we're discussing. right?
Exactly.
It might have to be designated as a unique tourist attraction, which I guess you could argue. it
Yeah,
is.
I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, we could, and we've had this discussion 2 years ago with Joe Scott, and he agreed that it could be designated as that.
So from our perspective, they can move forward. The investment funding on the other end is not an issue. If they get that, there's no issue on our end.
The only, as an ultimate competitor, the only concern I have is that Joe Scott's firm is going to put a lot of effort into this and they won't get reimbursed if this thing falls apart.
Once again, you're not in charge of making the world fair. They come to us with a request and it qualifies, we do what we do, we give them an answer. I mean,
I took their $200, even though they already paid $200.
so once again, I don't think we want to be in the way of somebody taking a risk if they choose to take that.
I'd be shocked if Doug has not made
Yeah.
inquiries to banking institutions.
I mean, he certainly understands
It's
banking.
been 30 years.
Yes.
You understand?
This is the first time I've seen what's yesterday that they have another investor. Yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah. That's the end of my question.
Any director report comments? Any other updates you have for us at all? Going once, going twice? Move it to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Been interesting more.
Governance.
Oh,
We don't have, Andrew,
All right, so Andrew is the chair.
oh, it's still up.
Okay.
You want me to you just want me to open the meeting? I mean, yeah, I'll open the governance meeting. I don't have the agenda open at the moment. So
Okay.
can I hand it over to Jody to,
Well, we can't approve the minutes because we don't have a quorum.
Right.
Right.
And then the only thing I wanted to bring up with governance is that I'm now going through salary reviews for staff. We had budgeted I think a 5% increase for this year. And we'll be making some recommendations in the next governance committee. And then we are still looking at retirement. And that also is dependent on how much money we get from the company.
So just 2 questions on that. You can provide us ahead of time prior to the governance committee, so we have a chance to review that. Okay, great. The other thing too, Andrew, I'm not sure exactly, because obviously I'm new in the chair position here in terms of Jody's evaluation and understanding kind of salary review for Jody. Is that the job of the governance or is that the job of the chair? And I don't know who wants to answer that question. I'm not reading bylaws.
I believe that we looked at and collated the reviews, correct, Andrew?
yeah, I think that we collected reviews and then they were collated. Yeah.
Okay. That's something we just need to get on our radar before
Yeah.
the next committee meeting. Do we have,
In terms of collecting that feedback from the board, that's what you're saying?
correct, yeah, or what form we're gonna use, format we're gonna use to do that, if we're changing
Okay.
that as is.
Should ask staff.
Why would we ask them staff? Yeah, and I guess who we want to see feedback from for that. The other thing issue is the visibility from the finances. Do we have Jody's specific salary year over year, and is there anything contractually for that we had, I think we did originally establish some kind of increase. I don't know that we followed through on any of that, so.
I have.
Okay, so if I could as a chair get kind of your salary year over year of what it's been, that would be helpful on my side.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.